Um, we're here at the SD50 locomotive, section 2, control indicating devices. This section provides a brief description of the control indication devices used as the operator. Although the equipment receives coverage and is not used during the normal operation, it also includes familiar operators within the function. The majority controls indicate the devices to the operator located on the locomotive cab, figure 2.1. Any engine starting and monitoring equipment is located in the equipment in the engine room. The cabin equipment operating equipment is located in the locomotive cab. Two locations: operator control stands and locomotive control cabinet. Operator control stands. The operator control stands in Figure 2.2 control contains switches, gates, operating handles used by the operator. Individual components described together with the functions of the following paragraphs. The controller, the following operator handles are located on the locomotive controller. Dynamic braking separates the handle provided by the control dynamic brakes. The figure 2.4 as it is uttermost control panel is moved from left to right. Here you see 2.3, a typical control stand with the multiple unit valves and cutouts, cocks, MU2A dual ported cutout cock, individual brake valve, cutout cock valve, train line pressure, adjustment valve with automatic brake valve, air horn, air gauge with load current indicating meter control, operating switches, light dimmer, dynamic brake, circuit breaker, head switch, front throttle handle, reverse handle, ground reset button, attention call button, headlight, switch rear, bell ringer, valve, manual sand lever, switch, lead trucks and switches, indicators, light panel, dynamic brake handle, ground and light switches, air brake pedal, and is provided. 2.3 is a locomotive controller, and 2.4 shows the dynamic brake handle, and then set up to 8 notches. Increasing the braking effort, the handle grip is somewhat out of the round of the flattened surfaces. Vertical distinguished is from the throttle of the handle. It is flattened and the surface horizontal. The brake handle is 2 to 10, possibly off in setup. 2 to 10 positions. Often setup operating ranges 1 through a full eighth, through which the handle moves freely through the notching. Mechanically interlocking prevents the dynamic brake handling moving pulled off the position unless the throttle idle of the reverser is from the forward of the reverse operation. Caution: during the transfer from the power operation of the dynamic braking, the throttle must be held in idle for at least 10 seconds before moving the dynamic brake handle to the setup position. They eliminate the possibility of a sudden surge braking effort with the possible train run over and most motor flashovers. During the transfer, caution: once again, during the transfer of the power operation, the dynamic braking throttle must be held at idle for 10 seconds before the moving the dynamic brake handle to setup position to the element of the possible sudden surge charge effort with possible train or motor flasher over. The throttle handle is located in the below the dynamic braking handle. It is moved to increase the locomotive power. The handle is somewhat out of the round, flattened surface horizontal. Distinguish the dynamic braking handle. The throttle has 9 intended positions: idle 1 through 8, and the stop 1 through 8 plus the stop position, which is obtained by pulling the handle outward, moving it to the right and beyond the idle to the stop. Idle to the stop position when obtained by the pulling handle outward and moving it into the return right beyond its idle stop. All engines of the locomotive since mechanical interlocking prevented the throttle handles may be moved out or in idle into the power position. The dynamic brake handles advance in the setup beyond, but it can be moved to stop position to stop all engines. And the consist of the throttle that can be not moved, where the reverse handle is centered from the moved or controller. The reverse handle is the lowest handle of the control panel. It has 3 detentions in the left, centered, right, and when this handle is moved to the right toward the short hood at the end of the unit, the circuits are set up. Set up circuits operating the locomotives in this direction. Neutral is in the middle to remove. Set up the circuits for the operating locomotive in this direction. Changing the reverse handle sets it up a different direction. For the locomotive to move in the direction the handle is moved to the left toward the long hood, the locomotive will move to the direction of the power is applied. The reverse handle centered mechanical interlocking prevents the movement from the dynamic brake handle from the throttle handle can be moved. In some such cases, the power will not be applied to the traction motor. The reverse handle is centered and remove the point panel to the lock of throttle idle position, dynamic brake handle off position. Mechanical interlocks of the controls handles of the control are interlocked so that the reverse handle is in neutral centered, and the dynamic brake handle cannot be moved out of the off position, though the throttle can be moved to any position. Reverse handle can be removed from the controller if the throttle can be removed from the controller if the throttle is in idle. A reverse hand in forward and reverse throttle must be moved to any position that the dynamic braking is in off position. The dynamic braking can be moved to any position if the throttle is on idle. Reverse handle removed from the controller. Throttle locked from the idle. Throttle locked in the idle position. Dynamic brake locked off position. Throttle in idle position. Dynamic brake handle can be moved to any position, reverse into the forward reverse position. Reverse handle then can be placed in neutral forward or reverse in the dynamic brake handle in the off position. Throttle of the above idle position. Dynamic brake handle cannot be moved. The reverse handle cannot be moved and when the throttle is in idle position. Dynamic braking handle in the off position. These are interlocks of the controllers. The throttle can be moved to any position if the brake handle is off. The reverse handle can be moved to any position if the throttle is on idle. Dynamic brake handle moved out of, and the dynamic brake handle moved out of the off position. Throttle can be moved to out of the idle position into the power position. But can be moved, can be moved into stop position. Reverse handle cannot be moved out of forward or reverse into the off position. 26L, the L air brake system. The basic locomotives are equipped with 26L air brake equipment. The equipment is located on the left of the control and shown on the figure. That includes the automatic brake independent cutout pilot valve, train line, air pressure adjustment, either dual ported or cutout cock or multi-unit 2A. A dead engine feature is a part of the 26L air brake equipment. Dead engine cutout cock pressure of the regulator are accessible outside of the locomotive through the side doors. Prevented the pressure regulators. The maintenance personnel is not to be set on the operator. The automatic it's kind of hard with the scroll. The pressure regulator is set by the maintenance control, is not to be set on the operator. The automatic brake valve handle. The automatic brake valve handle controls the application, releases both the locomotive and the train. The brake valve is of the pressure maintaining type, which will hold the brake pipe reduction consistent against the normal brake pipe leakage. The brief description is operating position. The position follows release position. The position is charging the equipment, releasing the locomotive and train brakes are located at the handle of the extreme left of the quadrant. Dead end cutout cock position of the engine operation pressure regulator. The dead engine cutout cock and the pressure regulator. Minimum, you see here an automatic brake valve with a cutoff valve and the train line of air pressure adjustment valve, while you also see standing the brake valve in release, minimum reduction, full service supplement, suppression, handle, and emergency. The minimum reduction position, the position located on the handle against the first raised portion of the quadrant of the right of the release position. The handle moved to the position minimum braking effort is obtained. The service zone. The position consists of a sector handled on the right of the release for the position and the moving handle to the left of the right through the service position. The degree braking effort is an increased unit and with a handle extreme right to the sector handled in the full service position. Full servicing braking effort is obtained. The suppression Suppression position: the position located with the handle against the second raised position from the quadrant right of the release position, in addition to the providing full surface braking effort in the handle and the full surface prevention, suppression, overspeed control, and any safety control application that is equipped and is obtained. The handle off position is located in the first quadrant, not to the right suppression. If it is equipped, the handle is removed. The position of the handle should be placed on the trailing units of the multiple unit locomotives and locomotives being towed dead in a train. Emergency in the position. The emergency position is to the extreme right of the brake valve quadrant. Is in the position may be used in the making brake valve emergencies brake applications. Resetting the emergency application. Independent brake valve handling. Independent brake valve handling in Figure 210 is located directly below the automatic brake handle. Figure 210, you see the independent brake handle with the pressure of low lever down to the release of the automatic application of the locomotive brakes. From release to full application service zone. The handle provides independent locomotive effort and the inspective braking effort. The brake valve and the self-lapping will hold the brake applied to the brief description operating the valves. Release position. The release position located on the handle is extreme lift of the quadrant. The release is as a locomotive brake, provided the automatic brake or handle is in the release position. The full application of the position located with the handle extreme right to the quadrant, and moving the handle from the right from the service zone to the degree of the locomotive braking effort and increase with the full application braking effort is obtained the depression of the independent handle whenever the release portion is in the release of the automatic brake application of the existing of the locomotive depression independent brake handle when the service is released in the automatic application of the locomotive of the brakes to valve corresponding to the position of the independent brake handle. Note, the locomotive model can be equipped with the multi-unit 2AV valve, the dual-ported cock for the multi-unit control. Information about such devices provided. The dual-ported cutout cock. The dual-ported cutout cock is so equipped located in the lower side of the control stand, and the purpose of the locomotive brake system for the lead trail dead in operations. The hand placed in the closed trail position with the unit trailing in a consistent and in place open lead or dead position when the leading or dead. The multiple unit 2A unit valve is located to the left of the hand of the air brake and is supposed to the valve of the F1 selector, which for the valve devices is enables the air braking of the one of the locomotive in a unit into control to the other unit. The multiple unit 2A valve is in which you see 1, it's leader dead, and 2 is the trailer for 26. The valve positioning at the turning of the desired setting. You see the multi-unit valve with the dual-ported cutout cock and the MU2A valve. Cutoff pilot valve. The cutoff pilot valve, Figure 2.7, is located in automatic brake valve housing directly beneath the automatic brake handle valve. The outflowing positions is 1 out and 2 in. And to operate the locomotive in the control, the cutoff valve handle must be pushed in and rotated into the in position, out position, and is used into the hauling locomotive to a dead or trailing unit. And the consist of on the special order of the cutoff pilot valve made the following 3 positions: on, freight, and passenger. In the case of the valve, the push and place in the position desired depending on the makeup of the train. Train line air pressure adjustment valve. The train air pressure adjustment is located on the left of the automatic brake valve. The automatic brake valve is handling the release position that is used to obtain the brake pressure desired. The automatic brake valve will maintain the selected pressure against the overcharge of the leakage. 26L air breaker equipment operated in position in the absence of specific instruction usually issued by each railroad to cover the recommended pressure accesses. See, refer to Figure 212 of the brake equipment operating positions must often encountered with the locomotive in service. Here's 2.6. 2.12 is in page 26 is air brake equipment position. It goes with the type of service, the automatic brake valve, the independent brake valve, the cutout. When it's in lead, shipping, dead in train, lead or leading train, dead in train. Multiple locomotive control extras, multiple units. With the independent cutout valve, diesel engine, and as long as the MUTD, and it goes over open or close, with the and releases. Miscellaneous control of the switches. The following paragraph describes the miscellaneous control switches. Indicators typically provide the operator control stand. Figure 2.2. The air horn valve. The air horn valve is pulled and compressed and is supplied with the locomotive air horn. Sanding switches. Manual sand is cut out when the locomotive is Super Series operation, moving in the above 5 miles an hour. However, Super Series locomotives is inconsistent with the older units. Movement of the sand lever switch will supply a train line signal to the older units, and sand will be applied. Sanding leading truck toggle switch. Sanding from the switch is tray line. The switch provides as the only lead truck. The method of sanding dresses the rail adequately for most of the conduction of the sand light will come on when the switch is activated. Sand lever switch. The operated lever supplies the signal sanding module. The sanding module causes sanding light of the operational control stand control stand to turn on. Determine the direction the locomotive is moving. Direction train lines is appropriate forward or reverse. Sanding magnet valves. The basic switch is non-latching, but may be operating in any direction on the correction of the sand. The direction sanding, which may be provided by the operational switch, may be latching if requested by the railroad. Electronically controlled sand in the basic system of the sense of the locomotive may be operated in multiple units. Older units are equipped with only pneumatic control sanding. Train line pneumatic control sanding as may be provided with the optional extra in addition to the electronic control. In such manner, trained actuating pipes may be connected between the unit's bell ringer valve. The mushroom type of the valve actuator operates the locomotive single bell indicator light panel. The indicator light bulb contains the lights that indicates the operation of the various systems of the locomotive. The manual provisions with the express test lights. The converted with either white colored or lenses caps identified by the fixed letters. The lights are discussed in the following paragraphs. Typical indicator light, as you see, is a wheel slippage, a PCS, pneumatic control switch, brake warning, standing control operated sand, and OSC hull. The following indicators have the push to test feature, which allows the testing of the lamp circuit isolated with the operation of the power of the control. When the lens's cap is depressed and the supply the voltage is depressed across the lamp circuit. After 1 second of delay, the wheel slippage light comes on to indicate one of the following 4 conditions: slipping the wheels while starting on the train, starting the wheel slippage functions to correct the wheel slips, intermittent flashing of the wheel slips that indicates the moderate to the severe wheel slip. The throttle locomotive power should not be reduced unless the served lurching threatenings to break the train. Note that the minor slip of the wheel creep will not actually wheel slip light and will not actuate the wheel slip light. The automatic sanding may take the place of regulation of the power of the wheels. Do not misinterpret this power control as a loss of power due to the fault. Wheel overspeed. The overspeed conditions may result in simultaneously wheel slippage successfully high track speeds, which is effective in wheel slip light when each locomotive power wheel is regulated automatically correct. The condition is indicated with the wheel slip light and the cycle is on or off. The caution: irregular flashing of the wheel slip of the light of the locomotive is in power above 1.5 miles an hour, indicating the super series of failure. Operation may continue. The condition may be reported authorized maintenance personnel. Lock wheel condition will cause the wheel slip light on its locomotive and is under the power. The condition is indicated with the wheel slip light and continuous. Never operate the locomotive in continuous wheel slip light. Lock wheel identification circuit difficulty. Suspected stop of the locomotive may carefully inspect the assertion that there are no locked sliding wheels before the procedure. 4. Wheel slipping during the dynamic braking. When equipped with dynamic braking, the wheel slips will come to indicate the pair of the wheel slips detected tending to rotate to slower speed. The pneumatic control system opening light. The pneumatic control system opening light comes to indicate the safety control emergency air brake application. The pneumatic control switch functions. The PCS functions to actually cut out the traction motors in the event of the safety control of the emergency air brake application. Locomotive's power is restored and reset to the pneumatic control switch that occurs automatically provided that the control of the air brake is recovered and the throttle is returned to the idle position. The brake warning light, the light indicates the excessive dynamic braking current. The event of the braking warning light reduces the dynamic brake handle and immediately decreasing the braking effort, preventing the possible equipment damage. If the braking warning light does go on into the indicating repeats the dynamic brake cutout of the switch of the engine control of the affected unit of the cutout position, the unit will operate normally under power but not dynamic braking. Total dynamic braking effort of the units coupled will be reduced. The OSH light, the oscillating headlight, causes the indicator of the red oscillating headlight and occurs because of the emergency penalty control in the brake light. Indicates the red oscillating light and it's on either because of the emergency or penalty control brake application because of the single light control switch on the control is positioned at red. Sanding light. The sanding light indicates that one of the manual sanding switches is activated. The automatic sanding initiated the locomotive control circuit's emergency sanding will not cause the sanding light to come on. The speed control not operation system comes to indicate that the automatic train speed control is not operating. That occurs with either the mode of the selector switch of the cab indicator. The off position speed control switches on the controls mounted the speed controller with the switch boxes in the off position. Light switches. Switches of the ground step of the step light of the light gauges are located on the left of the control of the lights are on the switches are up in the up position. The seventh throttle. The seventh throttle knockdown switch. The switch is equipped with the cause the eighth throttle operation reduce the seventh throttle engine speed power for the when place and down position headlights. The switches two four position rotary snap switches that are provided independent control of the front and rear headlights. Each switch is on off, dim, or MED, or MED, or BRT positions. Control operating switches, a group of 3 operation switches located up in the right hand corner of the control stand. The snap into the position when the moving upward. The switches must be set in the on position when the units are leading and consistent, but must be set on the off position and trailing consistent units. So if you have it in the lead consistent of it, position them on. If it's set in the off position of the trailing consisting of units. Engine run switch. The switch must be obtaining the throttle control of the engine speed. If the engine runs, the switch must be on to obtain throttle control of the engine speed. If the engine's run switch is off, the engine will run at idle speed. Low idle speed if equipped, regardless of the throttle hand position. To obtain control engine speed, engine run switch. The generation feed switch, the generation field switch. The generation field switch must be completely excitation circuits must be on to complete the excitation circuits of the main generator. The switch of the is in the off position and engaged with will respond to the throttle. The generator will not develop power. The control of the fuel P switch, the control of the fuel pump switch. Provides power to the various low voltage control circuits. The switch must be on to start the engine or operate the fuel pump. The signal light pit switch. The switch must be used to turn on the locomotive single light. A dynamic braking control circuit breaker. Only the locomotives equipped with the dynamic braking circuit and this circuit breaker provided to protect against faulty operating of the test system. The circuit breaker should be on in the up position normal operation. A trip circuit breaker generally indicates the dynamic. During the dynamic brake testing, more than one dynamic brake handle and locomotive consisted was out of the off position. Attendant call push button. When the button is pushed, any unit coupled and is consistent, the alarm will bar. When the button is pressed and any unit coupled and consists, the alarm bell will ring in all units. Ground reset push buttons. Restore locomotive power to reset the ground relay to the ground relay tripped on lights on away 10 seconds. The pressure ground reset the button. Power push button. Power will reapply to it is not as necessary to isolate the unit have throttle idle while pressing on button on the unit unless the locomotive is at standstill. Repeated reset of the ground relay. Permissible instructions as unit and railroad regarding the repeated resetting and must be followed. However, the absence defining instruction on the contrary, isolate the unit whenever the ground relay light comes over the third on for the third time after the being reset twice. Caution: report any ground relay alarm indicates to proper maintenance personnel. Air gauges. Air gauges to indicate the main reserve of the air pressure as well as the various pressures concerned with the air brakes are located along the top of the control stand. Load current indicator. Locomotive pulling force indicates the load current indication meter. The meter is graduated read amperes. Electric current of 1,650 of being the max on the scale. The red area of the meter faces indicates the current levels of the too high for the continuous operation. The meter is connected and indicates the average traction of the current. The caution: observe short time of operation, which places instructions pertaining to the low speed full throttle. The plate is located below the load current indicator. The maximum continuous current reading for short time operation leads were developed in throttle 8 operation. The valves must be decreased to the lower throttle position because the engine speed and consistent with traction motor cooling of the air reduced. A locomotive equipped with the dynamic braking of zero center type matter is applied for the figure 2.5. The meter needle swings from the right to the zero to indicate the load current during the power operation. It swings to the left arrow indicating the dynamic braking current within 900 amperes of being for the maximum reading of the braking portion of the meter. You have red 760A, 111260A. In red, yellow is 0 from 760A, and green is 0 to 1,700A. Since the dynamic brake regulator controls maximum braking current, this meter should be seldom, if ever, indicated more than 760 amperes, which is the basic rate of the dynamic braking resistor grids. The control cabinet contains the engine control panel, the fuse switches, the panels, the circuit breaker panels. Each panel consists of the controls indicating the device of the operator. Never open any of the control cabinet doors other than given to the access of the circuit breaker uses switches and high voltage current of the present through the control cabinet. Engine control panel. The engine control panel contains various switches, indicators of lights. Since all devices will be used to the operator, brief description of their functions provided. Indicator lights of the basic type. An alarm accompanies all alarm, and an alarm bell accompanies alarm signal. Light indication of the bell will ring in all units of the locomotive consistent with the light will come on only if the affected unit. The filter blower motor circuit breaker open light. Light indicates this car body internal filter exhaust blower is not receiving power check. That trip filter blower motor circuit breakers on number 3 circuit breaker panel. If the breaker will not reset, the operation may continue to the nearest position point where the condition should be reported and corrected. So here we see the engine control panel, 2 number 1 circuit breakers, number 2 circuit breaker panels, number 3 circuit breaker panel, and the fuse and switch panel. This is type SD50 control cabinet panel. Compression low oil pressure light. The light indicates the air compressor experiencing a low oil pressure conditions. Notify the maintenance personnel as soon as possible. Over here you see an engine control panel with the typical extras. The test load light. The test light comes on whenever the test panel rotary test switches in place to the load test number 1 load test number 2 circuit check. The position of the load light indicates that the locomotive circuits are set up for either load testing or reverse handling centered in a circuit check. The generated field of the circuit breaker open. The locomotive may be equipped with the automatic load of the own dynamic braking resistor grids. Caution: do not perform automatic loading on a unit moving in a consistent or train. Do not return the test switch to normal. Do not return the test switch to normal position while the operating under load. The HV guard, the heavy ground fault light. The light indicates the electrical path of the ground has occurred. The ground group of diodes with the main generator has failed. The light comes on, or alarm sounds. The operator should wait 10 seconds to press the ground's reset button laid on the control stand. Power when then a reapply is necessary to isolate the unit. More is necessary to have the throttle and idle while the position of the buttons. If there is no ground set button on the control stand, the locomotive will be equipped with a special automatic ground relay set with the operator needed to take no action to reset the relay. Such automatic reset devices are equipped to lockout. Automatic resets will be nullified after a specific number of trips or given number of the trips within a time period on a basic locomotive. When the high voltage ground of the fault alarm occurs the third time after using the ground reset between the both button twice after affected unit shall be isolated. Always report a ground fault light indicated to the proper maintenance personnel. Turbo auxiliary pump light. Light will come in the main battery switch and the turbo lube pump circuit breakers are closed. Indicates the turbocharger of the lube oil pump is supplying the lube oil. The turbocharger will remain approximately 35 minutes after the battery is switched to close. The fuel prime engine starts to operate. The fuel prime engine start switch is operated after 35 minutes period. The time cycle is again this reestablished. Light remains another 35 minutes. Light will also come on and remain approximately 35 minutes after the engine is stopped and provides indication of the auxiliary lube oil pump is supplying oil to cool off the turbocharger. If the proper supply of the turbo lube pump is open, the engine will not start. The light will fail to come on when the starting of the temp is made. No battery charge, no power light. It indicates the AC power is being delivered by the companion alternator. This may be due to trip generated field AC control, auxiliary generated field, circuit breaker, engine shutdown, alternator failure with the auxiliary generator which excites the alternator. The main generator cannot produce power without companion of the alternator output. If the light is on for the reasons other than the engine shutdown, the engine speed down, power are reduced to the idle conditions. If the thing's on for other reasons, then engine shutdown, engine speed should be run at idle position. Hot engine light. The light operates in conjunction with the alarm bell to warn the operator that the engine has reached the excessive temperature. When the operating the throttle position 7 to 8, hot engine cool and would automatically reduce the engine speed of the power to the throttle of 5 to 6, respectively. In operating the throttle position below 6 or below, the engine speed power will not be reduced during the hot engine conditions. However, the hot engine light will be on and an alarm bell will ring. If cooling the system has been failed, the hot lubricating oil detector will shut down the engine before the serious engine damage occurs. If the engine shutdown occurs, does not attempt to restart the engine, report the shutdown of circumstances to maintenance personnel. Locomotive any equipped and nullify the high engine power reduction of a low lead unit in the consist of, in this case, because the lead unit reverse handle is not entered, the circuit will automatically nullify the power of the reduction. Left lead unit speed power will not be reduced, and the alarm bell ringing on all units. Governor shutdown of the 6th throttle light. The light comes on one of the following two reasons: a closed engine of the governor shutdown or 6th throttle light. A clogged engine air filter has been tripped to the EFL relay, causing a reduction of the engine speed from 8 to 6. 8 throttle 8 to 6. The engine governor has the shutdown and due to shut down the engine down due to one of the following: the true low oil pressure, hot engine oil, low cooling, water pressures, any condition which causes different pressures across from the water pump to the drop of the low air boxes, crankcase oil pressure over pressure. A mechanism to detect the low engine lubrication oil pressures built to the engine governor. The mechanism is actuated with the true oil pressure failure to dumping of the engine oil to leading to the governor in the event of the small button will pop out of the governor body indicating the mechanism has tripped the low oil alarm switch. The light of the engine control panel will close on it indicate the low oil mechanism is tripped. When the governor shuts down, indicated the curves are necessary to determine whether the crankcase pressure lower water detector have been tripped and dumped engine oil from the leading of to the governor. Whether the true oil failure has occurred can be determined by checking the differential water crankcase pressure detector figure truth 7 of the protruding reset button. And the protruding lower button indicates the accessible oil pressure. The protruding upper button indicates the low pressure warning. When it determines that the crankcase pressure is detector has tripped more than make no further engine room inspections. Do not attempt to restart the engine. Isolate the unit and drain the cooling system in accordance with the railroad regulations. Neither crankcase pressure nor low water pressure detector has been tripped. Engine oil level is satisfactory with the hot engine condition apparent to do any attempt to restart the engine and report the engine shutdown circumstances to authorized maintenance personnel. Indicator lights press to test indicator lights. The extra equipment for the engine control may have one or more indicating lights panels replacing the basic bulbs. In each indicator light and panel provisions of the 6 push test indicator lights. When equipped, the second indicator light panel will contain one of the 6 additional indicator lights. The indicator lights panels are equipped to the push test lights. The features allow testing of the lamp circuit close along isolated for the operation in the power control system. When the lights is compressed, the voltage is supplied in the lamp circuit. After one of the second delay, the light should go on. Number 1 indicator light panel. The number 1 indicator light panel, figure 218, contains 6 indicator lights. Test ground relay hot engine. The governing from 6 to GOV6KD, no number power change and turbo pump. Test lights. The test light comes on and the test switch is placed in the circuit check at the load test number 1 and load test number 2 positions. Light indicates the locomotive circuit are set up for the either load testing or circuit check on a special order. The equipped and automatically load on a dynamic braking resistor on the grids of the basic unit. And generator uses connected with the external loading resistor. Caution: do not perform an automatic loading on a unit moving on a consistent train. Do not move the testing switch to normal position while operating the load. A ground relay light. The light indicates the electrical path ground that has occurred to the diodes of the main generator field. Light comes on, alarm. They should wait 10 seconds, then press the ground reset button located on the control stand. Be pressed when power will then apply. If necessary, isolate the unit, nor in the necessary to have the throttle idle when pressing the button. If there's no ground reset on the control stand, the locomotive will be equipped with a special automatic ground relay reset, and the operator needs to take action to reset the relay. The automatic reset devices are equipped to lock out. Automatic reset will notify after each specific number of trips after a given number of trips within a time period on a basic locomotive when the high voltage ground of the fault alarm occurs. The third time after being reset twice, affected unit should be isolated. Caution: report any ground relay alarm indicates the proper maintenance personnel. The hot engine light. The light operates in conjunction with the alarm bell. The operators the engine coolant has reached the excessive temperature. The operating throttles of 7 to 8 engine conditions will automatically reduce the engine speed proper to the equivalent throttle speed of 5 and 6 respectively. If the operating throttle position is 6 or below, engine speeds proper will not be reduced during the engine condition. However, the hot engine light will be on and alarm bell will ring. The cooling system has been fired, or the cooling system has failed. The hot lubrication detector shall be the engine light. The hot lubrication oil detector will shut the engine down from serious engineering damage. The hot engine shutdown occurs due to the attempt to restart the engine. Do not attempt to restart the engine. Report to shutdown circumstance in the maintenance control. The governor 6KD light. Light comes on when the following reasons: the clogged engine air filter has tripped the EFL relay, causing a reduction in the engine speed of the throttle 8 to 6. The engine governor has shut off the engine due to one of the following: true low oil pressure, hot engine, and low cooling water pressure. Condition of the causing differential pressure across the water pump to drop below the airbox pressure. The crankcase oil pressure overpressure. Crankcase oil pan overpressure. Refer to the safety device paragraph, the engine room equipment for the section, the information concerning the safety devices. No power charge light indicates the AC power that is being delivered by the companion alternator that may be due to the trip generator field, AC control, auxiliary generator field, circuit breaker, engine shutdown, alternator failure to the auxiliary generator. When the excite the alternator, main generator cannot produce power within the companion alternator's output. If the light is one on the reason for other than engine shutdown, engine speed, power are reduced to idle conditions. Turbo pump light. The light will come on as soon as the main battery switch of the tube light pump circuit breaker are closed. Indicates the turbocharger auxiliary oil pump supplying lube oil charger. It will remain at approximately 35 minutes after the main battery is closed, which the fuel primer engine starts operated after 35 minutes period. Time cycles are reestablished and light remains on for another 35 minutes. The light will also come on remaining approximately 35 minutes after the engine is stopped. It provides an indication the auxiliary lube oil pump is supplying the oil to the turbocharger bearings. If the power supply is on, the turbo lube motor is open, the engine should not start, and the light will fail to come on when the starting attempt is made. Number 2 indicator light. The number 2 indicator light panel contains one or 6 non-basic indicator lights. The typical panel is figure 219. The 9 typical number 2 identical periods with water drain off this filter motor trip, handbrake comps, low oil, lock wheel. Basically, checks the trip filter blower circle, filter motor trip light. Filter motor trip light. When equipped with the light, indicates the car body internal filter blower is not receiving power. Check for the triplet filter blower, multi circuit breaker, and number 3 circuit breaker panel. The breaker will not reset. Operation may continue to the nearest maintenance points. Water drains light. The light accompanied by the alarm bell indicates the automatic cooling system. Draining circuits is disabled. This circuit that are lighted in the special equipment. The circuit should be disabled and tripped with water drain circuit breakers. Depression auto drain cold. Water fill switch on the AC cabinet, but by fault of it in the system, when the circuit is disabled, the engine speed cannot be raised into idle. Note the light not coming on indicates the automatically cooling system drain circuit is disabled. Even if the control circuit breaker or the main battery knife is switches on. A comp light, a compressor light. The light indicates the air compressor is experiencing low oil pressure condition. Notify the maintenance personnel as soon as possible. Lock wheel light. The light indicates the lock wheel condition will be accompanied with continuous wheel slip light. Alarm bell buzzer. Observe the following: lock wheels, continuous wheel slip light, alarm bell procedure. Stop train. Looking for the unit within locked wheel indication. Roll train slowly with the observing wheels. If the wheel slide, cut out until out of the train. If all wheels roll and L are reset automatically and produced normally. Lock wheel continuous wheel slip light and alarm bell. The stop procedure: stop the train, look at the unit and with the locked wheel indication. Rolling train, stop slowly, observe the wheels. If the wheel slides in the cutout of the train, in the cut unit of the train, if the wheels roll and left wheel resets automatically, or lock wheel will reset automatically, procedure normally. Warning: the operator must not operate the reset or the cutout switches on a lock wheel circuit module. If the automatic reset follows the lock wheel indication in the report, report the condition of the nearest maintenance point when an inspection can be made on the flat spots of the wheels. Emergency fuel cut off of the engine stop switch. The diesel engine will stop whenever the engine stop button push is pressed. The reaction of the push button is immediately. It need not to be held until the engine stops. Traction motor cut off switch. The traction motor cut off switch is provided by the operator and electrically isolates the defective traction motor. The permits operation of the maintaining good motors. The power control system automatically limits the power to prevent overloading the operating motors. The isolated motor will continue to rotate as the train moves. Observe the instruction printed in the panel will necessary to cut out a traction motor. Warning: when a certain all wheels rotate freely, move the operating before operating with the motor cut out. make certain that all the wheels rotate freely before operating a motor cutout. The dynamic brake system is disconnected when the operating of the motor cutout. So the dynamic brake goes out when you operate the motor cutout, and the motor cutout has to be done when the wheels are free. Headlight control system: the twin-sailed beam front and rear headlights are controlled with the front and rear headlight switches of the locomotive control stand. Before the switches will function, the headlight circuit breaker must be placed on. On the locomotives equipped for the multi-unit operations, the remote headlight control switch is mounted on the engine control panel. This remote headlight controls the switch provided with the operation of the rear unit headlight for the lead O unit. The switch opposition of these units are as follows. On lead unit, if only a single locomotive unit is being used, place the switch on a single unit position. If multiple units of the trailing units are equipped with number 2 along hooded end of the lead unit, place on the switch in the controlling coupled long-headed end of the position. Coupled it to long-headed end position. On the number 2 control panel, if it is in long-headed end of the lead unit. Multiple unit services and trailer units of the number 1 or short end of the lead unit, placed in the controlling control coupled to the short end hooded ended position. On intermediate units, units operating between the other units of the multi-unit consist of place the switch in the intermediate unit position. On trailing units, the latest of the multi-unit should have a headlight control switch of the control and coupled in either end of the isolation switch has 2 positions, either one labeled start, stop, and isolate, others labeled run. The function of these 2 positions are follows: stop, start, and isolate. The isolation switch is the place switch in position with the diesel engine of the start. Of the start switch is effective when the isolating switch is in the position. The position also with the isolated switch. So basically, your start switch is ineffective when the isolated position of the switch is in the position. Position also used to isolate the unit when the isolated unit will not develop power, respond to the controls. In the event of the engine has run idle or speed, regardless of the throttle, the position will silence the alarm. In the event of the no power lube oil alarm, it will not, however, stop the alarm in the event of the hot engine. If the locomotive equipped with a remote traction motor cutout with the switch feature, the isolation switch must be played to isolate the position before the cutout switch is being operated. The run position: after engine has been started, the unit may be placed on the line. The moving installation to the run position, the unit will then respond to control and will develop power normal operation. Throttle limit switch. When equipped with the switch allows the locomotive power to be reduced by operating the throttle position 7-8 when trailing units remaining the normal power. Reducing the lead unit power helps dress the rail trailing units in the throttle position of 7-8 will reduce to the equivalent throttle position of 5 and 6. Then when the switch is in the throttle limit position, operating a throttle position of 6 or below will not be reduced. Locked wheel cutouts reset switch is provided. If the locked wheel detection system is detected, the lock wheel cutout switch reset switch is provided. For the lock wheel detection system operational, the switch must be locked wheel out position. The lock wheel detection system, the effect of whether the unit is under power is shut down, isolated as the motor cutouts. Where the switch is cut out or reset button, the lock wheel detection is nullified. However, the wheel slip control system will provide protection against the lock wheels on any of the units under the power without the motors cut out. The shoulder temporary operation conditions such as unequal release of the air brakes, bringing a locked wheel indication automatic reset to the occur, and when the lock wheel again turns freely, when wheel locked indication received, following the procedure outlined under the lock wheel light paragraph in this manual. The dynamic brake circuit brake cutout switch is provided. On units is occupied the switch is placed in the cutout position, and the individual unit will not operate dynamic braking. On the cutout switch is when the switch is placed on the cutout position, the individual unit will not operate dynamic braking. It will, however, continue to operate normally under the power. The switch can be used as a limit to the power number of units coupled together that will operate in dynamic braking, or it may be used to cut out a unit defective in the dynamic braking, yet all allowed to operate under the power. Miscellaneous light switches including the circuits of the various lights of the locomotive. The switches are closed desired to operate the class lights, number of the lights, engine room lights, platform circuit breakers. The three circuit breaker panels can circuit break Circuit breakers control used to protect the engine from the control system lights, miscellaneous devices. They are conditioned. These circuit breakers are operates as switches, but will trip open when the overload occurs. Number one, circuit breaker panel. The panel contains a circuit breaker that protects the customer from requested extra equipment. Number one, circuit breaker controls has been provisions of 12 circuit breakers. The following paragraphs contain the brief description of a typical circuit breaker is protected by the breakers on this panel. Type number one, circuit breaker panel with 12 circuit breakers in this panel. Water drainage. Water drainage. The breaker protects the automatic cooling system of the drain circuit. The circuit is provided that it must be closed to enable the arming system. The C, the fuel prime engine start switch must be remain closed continuously to enable the circuit to provide protection against freezing. Radio control. When equipped with the remote, the radio control that protects the radio for control circuits. The air conditioner blower. The air conditioner is equipped with the air conditioner. The breaker protects the blower from the fan motor circuits. The separate brakes. The air conditioner. The compressor is located in number 3 circuit breaker panel. The auxiliary cab heater. The breaker protects the left and right auxiliary cab heater. This heat provides the heat control is provided by the switches loaded in the control stand at the heater. The radio protects the circuits of the supply of the radio when equipped. The utilities when equipped. The breaker protects the toilet immersion heater or the similar devices. Auto drain timer protects the circuits of the control equipment operation drain valves and the compressed air system. The warning devices. The breaker protects the single light circuits when equipped. The breaker may also be used to protect the similar devices. The safety devices, the train overspeed. This is the brings the penalty application of the brakes, operation pneumatic control switch to the drop locomotive power. The power is protect the overspeeding magnet valve circuits of this breaker may also be used to protect the similar devices. Number 2, the circuit breaker. The number 2 circuit breaker contains circuit breakers and switches that protect the basic locomotive equipment control system. The panel is divided into 3 sections. The shared middle section indicates the breakers required on locomotive operation. Breakers unshaded section are used in conditions as required. Generated transition. The breaker protects the main coil of the main generator series. The contractor, the portion of the control circuit. The closing enables the forward of the power parallel to the series of the main generator transition of the high-speed operation. The AC control. The breaker protects the proper portion of the senior model AC power from the companion alternator. The sensor module controls the main generator field excitation current service current level number AC voltage relay and NVR and connected to the circuit. If brake trips during the locomotive operation, the main generator will develop power and that no power charge light in the engine control power panel will come to indicate the no companion alternator output. The module control. The breaker protects the local control circuit that supplies the power to the circuit modules of miscellaneous control system devices. Turbo. The breaker must be on the position to start the engine operate the turbo auxiliary lube oil pump that remains in the position to provide auxiliary lubrication to the turbocharger and an engine that started after the engine is shut down. The control. The breaker set up the fuel pump that controls the engine of the circuit engine breaker. The engine is running and the power is supplied at the breaker. The auxiliary generator to maintain the open operation control. The brake trans control. Number double pole breakers located in the field operating motor multi-unit motor operated gauge switches to the control motor field the armature connection to either dynamic braking power operation. Such control is required to move transfer switch gear from any position to any other position. The breaker must be closed to powerful transfer to take place. Any opening breaker does not prevent switch gear that is already positioned in the conduction traction motor control. Interlocking prevents any operating setup of the conflicting transfer switch controls. The reverse control. The breaker is located in the feet of the operating motor. The multi-pole multi-operated gauge switch is to control the direction of the current of the flow of the traction motor. The field is to control the direction of the locomotive's travel. Since the power is required to be removed through the RV transfer switchgear for any of the position of any other position, the breaker must be closed. The power transfer for it to take place, and an open breaker does not prevent the switchgear. It already positions the conduction traction motor current. The interlocking prevents an operating setup to conflict with the transfer switching points. Local control. The circuit breaker establishes the local power of the auxiliary generator to operate heavy-duty switchgears and various control devices. Fuel pump. The breaker protects the fuel pump motor. Can circuit the fuel filter. Passes valve is provided by the prevented overloading of the fuel pump motor, and the fuel filter becomes clogged. The auxiliary generator field. The field excitation circuit auxiliary generator is particularly in this breaker. The event is the brake trips. The stop auxiliary generator output of the low voltage system also stops the fuel pump operation, and alternator failure. No power to the no battery all occurs. The engine will stop from the lack of fuel. Lights. The breaker must be on to supply the power to the switches to control the miscellaneous locomotive lights. The cab heater. The breaker provides the protection electrical cab heaters. When applied to the headlights, the breaker must be provided with the current front headlight circuits, although the light or at the rear consists. Ground relay switch. The purpose of the ground relay cutoff switch is to eliminate the ground protective relay from the locomotive circuits during the certain shop maintenance inspection. All must be kept closed and normal operation when the switch is on, and the prevents the excitation of the main generator throttle response of the diesel engine. In addition, with the cutting out of the ground protective relay, opening grid circuit reset. The button is used with them to reset the open of the grid of the circuit protective. The open grid circuit protector relay is on units equipped with the extending range dynamic braking. If one opens the circuit area occurs, the dynamic braking grid of cables of the open grid protective relay will pick up and locking out of the dynamic brakings. Do not reset the open grid circuit breaker. The open grid circuit breaker relay should only be set in the maintenance personnel following through the inspection of the dynamic braking cabling. Number 3 circuit breaker panel. Number 3 circuit breaker panel, figure 22, provision of the 5 circuit breaker. These panels are also contained in the sealed selection. These sections contain the test panel intended for the use of the maintenance personnel during the maintenance testing procedures. A 74-volt receptacle fuse test, such as are also used in this panel. Type 3 number C circuit board. The circuit board is a portion of divided into 2 sections of the circuits. The shaded section is required for the locomotive operation. The breaker's unshaded section is for the continued conditions that require. The generator field. The main generator receives the excitation current through the control to rectify the company alternator. The breaker is provided to protect the control rectifier of both generators while associated in the circuitry. Unlike other breakers on the panel, the trip is to follow the position. Generator field circuit breaker will trip the center of the position of the period of the cooling of the breaker must be placed in the full off position before setting off the resetting on the on position. The filter blower motor. The breaker protects the internal filter blower motor circuit. The blower is used to evacuate dirt from the load area of the central air compartment. Internal filters. A filter blower motor circuit breaker opening on filter motor trip limits the engine. The control panel will come on and the breaker trips open and is vertically left on in the off position. If tripped open, the operation may continue to the nearest maintenance point. The electric cab heaters in engine side. The protector circuits of the cab heater on the engine operation side. Helper side protects the circuit breaker and the cab heaters from the helper side of the cabin. The air conditioner equipped with the air conditioner. The brake protects the air conditioner compressor motor circuits. The circuit breaker. The air conditioner boiler fan motor is located in number 1 circuit breaker panel. Fuse test switches. Refer to use the fuse test equipment paragraph to the fuse and switch panel section. The 74 receptacle. The receptacle makes a 74-volt DC available from the maintenance and testing of the purposes. Power is applied in the receptacle when the main battery switches the light circuit breakers are closed. Fuels and switch panels. The fuse and switch panels contains the equipment described in the following paragraphs. This companion alternator field fuse, and short of the occurs the circuit auxiliary generator voltage cut down, and the machine may not be harmed. No battery charge, no power, no power charge alarm occurs. Auxiliary generator circuit breaker. The breaker connects the breaker connects the auxiliary generator to the locomotive voltage system that protects against the excessive current demands. Unlike other breakers, the trip of the off position of the breaker will trip the center position of the period of cooling. The breaker must be placed in the full off position before resetting the position. The starting fuse is only during the period of the diesel engine actually being started. At this time, the battery current flows through the fuse and start in the contactor of the starting motors. Although the fuse should be in the good condition, always left in the place with no effective locomotive operation, then the engine starting effective use may be defective at attempting to start an engine since the time even the starting contactor is closed, the starting circuit opens. The module is equipped with either 400 to 80 pound amperes starting the fuse depending on the start motor connection. The two fuses, the same physical sizes observed making on the panel, do not use in their incorrectly rated fuses. Main battery knife switches. The switch that is used connecting the batteries to the locomotive low voltage electrical system should be kept closed at all times during the operation. Caution: do not open battery which switch and engine shut down. Loading operation. Turbocharges loading oil pump will come down and continue to run approximately 35 minutes following the engine shutdown. They shut off automatically. 35 minutes allow the turbocharger bearings to cool using the engine lube oil. A special order turbocharged lube oil is connected with the battery side of the knife switch, so opening the switch after the engine shutdown will not stop the pump. The turbo auxiliary pump light will remain on, indicating the pump is running after the switch is open when it so is equipped. Fuse testing equipment. The facility testing fuses a pair of fusing testing blocks, testing lights installed with the fuse and switch panels, light toggle switches, and located number 3 circuit breaker. Panel fuses may be readily tested as follows. Move to tested light switch to the position to make sure the fuse and tested light is not burned out. Move test light switch to the off position to turn the light off, and place the fuse and test it across the test block so that the metal ends of the fuses of the firm's contact with the block of the fuse good. The light will come on. This always advise the test fuse installation. Also, this light isolate the questions opening the switches before changing and replacing fuse. And engine room equipment. Engine starting and motor equipment is located in the engine room as shown in figure 224. Engine starts control and refer to the operation section and complete the section and starting instructions. Fuel priming engine start switch. The 3-position rotary figure 225 is located in the junction box mounted on the equipment rack. Function of the 3 positions are follows. Fuel priming position. The pump is used to prime the engine with the fuel power prior to the starting is in the position of fuel pump motor. The engine energize the battery with the engine will not crank. Additional contact engines auxiliary turbocharger lube oil pump motor ensure the supply oil under the pressure of the turbocharger during the startup. Engine starting position. The position is used to supply the batteries and starting motors. The starting motors pinion with the gears. Pinion with the gear engages the engine ring gear, which causes the engine to crank the unit until the FP or the the FP or the ES switch is released. The position of all arms. Also arms of the automatic cooling system, the drain circuit, if provided by the water drain circuit breaker, is closed. In figure 240, you have a tickable engine room. One manual shutter office control, manual shutter control valve, water level instruction panel, water level sight gauge, fuel oil pump filter 5. Lube oil pressure gauge 6, water temperature 7, load regulator 8, load fuel prime and engine start 9, water filter 10, water tank overflow 11, air pressure gauge 12, AC cabinet 13, auto drain cold water fill switch 14, and 14 and 15 injector coolant control level fascia. The 14 injector coolant control level relay shaft. 15 lower water crankcase pressure detector. Centered in the off position, start and fuel primer engine switch to the FBE and the fuel primer engine start switch. Centered in the off position, the primer engine start switch is spring loaded to return the position when released. The contact normally closed with the position supplier to the fuel pump motor auxiliary generators when the engine is running. Note when equipped with light of the fuel pump engine, fuel primer and engine starting switch, the junction will come to the indicator of the start motors that have been overloaded. The lights of the power will not be applied to the starter motor regardless of the fuel primer and engine switch position. The light will go automatically when the start of the motor have been cooled sufficiently to allow the restart the attempt. Injector rack manual control lever lay shaft. The engine mounted hand operated figure 224 may be used to manually operate injector racks that primarily use to position the injector racks during the engine cranking. Therefore, by immediately supplying the fuel to the cylinder, one of the units equipped with the either purge or control system does not push the indicator control lever. Engine has cranked 6 seconds. Monitoring devices. The following devices mounted in certain locomotives. They provide a visual indication of the condition of the systems. Each device representation which could cause the engine to shut down. The periodic check. So these items are operated to the depending on failure, to report all abnormal readings of the primary personnel. Water level instruction plate. The plate is mounted in sight gauge of the water tanks to check the water level. Open rounded valve handle. The bottom of the gauge read water level, and using the instruction plate as guided. Those closed valves to avoid the false reading drainage gauge using a small drain clock at the bottom of the gauge. Lube oil pressure. The gauge provides a readings reference to the indication of lube oil pressure gauge during the normal operation of the lube oil pressure has increased. The diesel engine speed increase. The water temperature gauge. Each engine inlet temperature may be readily checked with the gauge. The gauge is colored coded, indicated cold, blue, normal, green, and hot red. And temperature approaching the hot zone indicate the tunnel similar to operation. The filter bypasses the gauge in condition with the primary fuel filter increased by the pressure differential across the filters indicated by the higher reading on the gauge. As pressure increases, the bypass valves begin to open and bypass in the primary fuel filters bypassing, imposing the filters are burning on the engine mounted, and the fuel oil filters will shorten their service life. The air pressure gauge. The gauge indicates the number one main air reserve pressure gauge and a safety device mechanism to detect low engine steam, low engine lubrication oil pressure. The engine governor uses normal or operational conditions such as engine and lubrication oil under pressure applied to the mechanism. Should the oil pressure drop to dangerously low levels, a small plunger figure 226 will be outside of the governor body indicating the mechanism has been tripped. The governor shutdown will come on and the engine will shut down in approximately 2 seconds. The operating throttle position 4 above the idle throttle is 1, 2, 3 and time delayed, and the shutdown is built to the governor. The locomotive is equipped for the devices of figure 227 which will detect hot engine oil, low cooling water pressure, excessive crankcase pressure. When activated, the device release oil pressure to the line leading to the low oil pressure mechanism. The governor is causing the engine shutdown. Necessary to determine the shutdown crankcase. Check the crankcase pressure, low water pressure, detecting the devices protruding the reset buttons and protruding the indicates the devices that has been caused and engage the crankcase pressure, the low pressure to cause not to cause the engine which shut down the engine, either the hotter oil or detector or true oil pressure failure. Warning: when it is determined the crankcase pressure detector is tripped, make no further engine room inspection. Do not attempt to restart the engine and isolate the unit. Drain the cooling system in accordance to the railroad regulations. Freezing the condition if freezing conditions are possible. If there are neither crankcase pressure nor level water pressure to any detected has tripped, the engine level is satisfactory. Hot engine condition apparently do not to restart the engine. Report the engine to shutdown circumstances. Maintenance personnel. Overspeed mechanism provided to stop injection of the fuel in the cylinders should be the engine speed of the excessive with the result immediately to shut down the engine. No battery charge, no alarm, power alarm, no reset and power trip of the reset levers contract. Counterclockwise unit is in its resets. Miscellaneous devices manual shutdown control valve during the normal operation figure 224. The operational position and that position controlling the system that automatically opens closes the cooling system shutters depending on the end conditions. The emergency shutdown may be open manually moving the shutter control valve to the test position. Outer automatic drain cold water filter switch. The operating push button in the switch figure 224 disarms the automatic cooling system. Drain system push button switch drain circuit special equipment. If automatic drain valve is operating, the switch causes the valve to close, enable the cooling system to be refilled. Automatic cooling system drained and remains disarmed, that it will not protect the cooling system against freezing. After cold water fill push button on until the fuel prime engine starts, but turn off the start position. Power reduction controls, if provided, you have a retrostat toggle strip and indicator light that provides located operational control standards of 5 miles per hour. As power reduction is built into the control system on special order, the 5 mile an hour limit is deleted. Power reduction indicator light. The power reduction indicator light is only where the power reduction toggle switch is local or train line position, which means that on the setting of the power reduction rheostat, if the same unit is affecting the traction motor, the indicator light is to the toggle switch is off, and see the previous note. Once again, that's rheostat toggle switch and indicator light. The power reduction toggle switch. The power reduction toggle switch switches on local position. Power reduction rheostat that controls the power reduction only on the unit. However, the local position of the toggle switch does not prevent the power reduction of the unit being controlled on another unit's power reduction. Power reduction toggle switch is in the train line position. The power reduction rheostat of the unit controls the power reduction on the unit and the other units. It consists of the power reduction toggle switch of the unit consists of the train line position on the power of the reduction of the toggle switch. All other consistent with it shall be used in the off position. See previous note. When the power reduction toggle switch is in the off position, the power reduction rheostat on this unit has no effect. The unit is in the part consistent of the off position. The switch prevents the unit power reduction rheostat from interfering with the controlling unit. The power reduction rheostat activated by the local or by the train line position. The power reduction toggle switch. The power reduction rheostat overrides the power level called by the by the throttle. For example, the rheostat is reduced to the power 1/3 if it will do so in each of the throttle positions, which sets the max position. Fully clockwise rheostat permits the normal position in each throttle position. So not under the power reduction controls. The spotter circuit, if so equipped. The spotter circuit, if used, and moved to the locomotive in slight distance. The battery voltage is applied to the two traction motors in series with the spotter switches are operated, and the isolation switch must be in the run, or alarm bell will ring when the circuit is in operation. Chapter 3, Operation.